Every practicing Christian knows that Isaiah 7:14 says, "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son." Christians claim that this verse prophesies the supernatural birth of Jesus. But what does AI think of this claim? After all, AI knows the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament backwards and forwards, inside and out. It also knows all sides of every argument thoroughly, which is why the conclusion of AI, and that pertains to any impartial AI, is likely to shock you. Let's go through it step by step. Before you see what AI has to say about Isaiah 7:14 and Jesus, you should first familiarize yourself with what Isaiah chapter 7 is about, rather than just knowing one verse. And I can summarize chapter 7 for you in 4 brief sentences. Isaiah chapter 7 is about King Ahaz, who was terrified because 2 enemy kings had surrounded Jerusalem and they were about to attack. God sent the prophet Isaiah to deliver a message about the outcome of the war. Isaiah told Ahaz that a young woman known to both of them was already pregnant and that the war would be over before her child was old enough to eat solid food and distinguish right from wrong. Jews protest that there is a massive discrepancy between the text of the original Hebrew Bible versus what Matthew and nearly all Christian Bible translations claim Isaiah 7:14 actually says. As AI confirms, the original Hebrew text of the original Hebrew Bible states something completely foreign to what Christians are reading in their translated Bibles. Behold, the young woman is with child, and she shall bear a son, and she shall call his name Emmanuel. So let's review all the major ways in which Matthew's interpretation and most Christian Bible translations differ from the Hebrew text of the original Hebrew Bible. 1. AI agrees that Matthew's New Testament Gospel and many Christian translations of the Hebrew Bible convert the phrase "the young woman" into "the virgin," thereby turning an ordinary event into a miraculous one. 2. AI also states that Matthew's New Testament Gospel and many Christian translations of the Hebrew Bible convert the phrase "is with child" into "shall conceive," moving a current situation 700 years into the future. And 3, AI confirms that Matthew's New Testament Gospel and many Christian translations of the Hebrew Bible convert the phrase "she shall call him Emmanuel" into "they will call him Emmanuel," broadening this event from a child known to her, King Ahaz, and Isaiah into a child known by all of humanity. Note that AI also agrees that nobody in the New Testament ever actually calls Jesus Emmanuel. On the contrary, an angel tells Mary in Luke 1:31, "You will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus." How, then, did the Gospel of Matthew arrive at the word virgin when Isaiah 7:14 only refers to a young woman, which is pronounced Almah in Hebrew? Christian apologists offer several common explanations. Some insist that the Hebrew term for an unmarried young woman equates to the term virgin. Why? It certainly doesn't do so in English, and Grok AI concurs that it doesn't do so in Hebrew either. The term Almah tells us absolutely nothing about a woman except that she is female and on the young side of adulthood. Mistranslating Almah as virgin is like mistranslating the Hebrew term for young man, which is elem, as basketball player. It might fit sometimes, but only by chance. There is only one word in the Hebrew language that specifically means virgin, which is betulah. Clearly, if Isaiah's main point had been to predict a miraculous virgin birth for future generations, he would have used the one Hebrew word that explicitly means virgin. After all, it's not like he was too religiously uptight to use the term. Isaiah used the word betulah in several other prophecies when he wanted to convey the status of a woman's virginity. In fact, the term Almah, or its feminine plural form, almot, appears 7 times in the Hebrew Bible, and in 2 of those instances, it happens to pertain to women who are virgins. But the only reason we know that they are virgins is that there is additional information within those stories that notify the reader of the woman's marital statuses and virginity. One of those verses, Proverbs 30:18-20, speaks of things that are hard to understand, including the way of a man with a young woman, or Almah, who is described as an adulteress who eats and wipes her mouth and says, "I've done nothing wrong." That is why it shouldn't surprise you when AI agrees that the Hebrew term Almah did not equate to a virgin even in biblical or ancient times. According to Jews and AI, it is true that Isaiah's prophecy regarding Isaiah 7:14 does involve a sign, but it's not a supernatural birth. The sign is the child Emmanuel himself, a living reminder to Ahaz that the two enemy kings would be defeated before the boy was old enough to eat curds and honey and know right from wrong. Here's the actual text. He, meaning the boy, will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, for before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. When questioned about Matthew's significant changes to the Hebrew text of the original Hebrew Bible, many Christians reply that this was an honest mistake because Matthew was likely relying on the Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. But the Septuagint is not always reliably translated. There are many major discrepancies between the original Hebrew Bible and the multitude of Septuagints that are in circulation. Why so? Because the Jewish rabbis who were commissioned to create the Septuagint only translated the Torah, or 5 books of Moses. The rest of the Hebrew Bible, which includes the prophets, such as Isaiah, and the writings, was translated later by authors whose backgrounds are unknown. So if we are to take Christians' word that Matthew's mistranslated rendering was innocent, it still doesn't explain why many Christians continue to cite Isaiah 7:14 as proof of Jesus' divinity, even after they are informed about the true original Hebrew text and context. To be fair, though, not all Christians ignore the original context of Isaiah. Some do read all of chapter 7, and they believe it's a dual prophecy, meaning that it's true for Isaiah's time and for Jesus 700 years later. But an ordinary birth to a young woman cannot meaningfully foreshadow a divine virgin birth, as the former is a common daily occurrence, while the latter would be an unprecedented supernatural event that has never occurred at any other time in the history of humanity. So these two events share almost nothing in common. That is why when AI is asked directly if Christians have inserted a narrative into Isaiah 7:14 that does not exist in the original Hebrew text, it, as will any other AI likely do too, confirms the assertion that, yes, from my perspective as an impartial AI analyzing the text, Christians do insert a narrative into Isaiah 7:14 that does not exist in the original Hebrew. As AI notes, Jews stay true to the context of Isaiah chapter 7 and King Ahaz, while Christians do not. But, of course, you're free to decide which interpretation holds more weight. Subscribe if you want to explore what AI has to say about other passages in the Hebrew Bible that are commonly presented by Christians as messianic prophecies.